A couple months ago, you may remember my video right here of common questions we get as burlesque performers from the audience, aka when we come out to our friends and families, or sometimes co-workers or strangers on the street, who knows. We receive a lot of questions as burlesque performers, a lot that are incredibly valid. The last video I made, I recorded way too many questions and answers, so it has been divided up. So this is part 2, the rest of some more questions that we tend to get asked as performers. So how much do you make as a burlesque performer? Oh boy. There's a lot of people who think we make a lot of money doing burlesque, and there's a lot of people who perform who think we make a lot of money because they don't make a lot of money. We don't make a lot of money either. It costs money to rent a studio, costumes cost money, rhinestones cost money, makeup costs money, time is money. There's just a lot. There's a lot of money that goes into burlesque. Even when we go for thrift stores for clothing that we can just customize ourselves into a costume, or we don't use rhinestones, it still adds up over time. I have a video that you can check out, link down below, talking about money and how to talk about your rate. But for the most part, the standards are all over the place. Some performers make $50 for an act, some make $150. If you're a headliner can make anywhere from about $200 to $400 per act. Those are people who have been in the business for a long time. For the most part, a lot of us don't make that. And I know a lot of people who make $20 or nothing for performing. But it is one of those things where you can make it a living if you work hard. But it does take a lot of work for us. So you do burlesque, so you must teach and produce and do everything, right? Speaking of money, producing takes a lot of money to do. You gotta pay performers, you gotta pay the venue, and so there's so much work that goes into producing. Most burlesque performers don't produce because they don't have the time or the money or even the interest, and that is okay. Same with teaching. Teaching takes a lot of effort as well, and as well, teaching burlesque is not just about teaching people how to take their clothes off. It is teaching people about the history and about the industry and about what does burlesque even look like outside of your city or your town. It's not just about the reveals and doing burlesque itself, but making sure you're connected outside of your local scene. Local scenes are not a vacuum, so making sure that individuals know our history and about the burlesque legends and diversity, and even things like making sure that you do your research when you look at a burlesque name for yourself. It's a lot of work and a lot of responsibility to bring people safely and feeling confident and happy going into the scene and not stressed out. There's a lot of burlesque performers who do teach or produce or both, but again, every burlesque performer has their own way of doing burlesque. Who does your choreography? How do you choreograph? Choreography is another fun thing. Matt Finnish shared this beautiful thing, and I relate to it heavily. Everyone's unique. Everyone has their own system for how they choreograph their acts. Some people will choreograph to the song, and how does that make me feel, and how do I want to move to it? Some performers will have an actual storyline. I personally choreograph with moments, so I will have very significant moments in my act that have to happen, and I'll kind of improvise the flow between them. I know a couple of people who use spreadsheets for choreography. There's hundreds of ways that performers can choreograph. I think this photo is a very accurate representation. Who makes your costumes? I make about 80% of my own costume pieces. A few exceptions are pasties I do not touch. Pasties I usually get someone else to make for me. Corsets I get them custom made, or I'll buy them online and maybe modify them or change them. Every burlesque performer again is going to be different. Some burlesque performers will go to professionals every time to make their costume pieces, or some performers will go to the thrift shop and customize it themselves. It's going to be very different between each performer. Do you have your own agent? I'm just going to kind of summarize a few of the questions because they all kind of go together. Burlesque performers are contractors. We are responsible for getting our own gigs, making our choreography, getting our acts together, getting our costumes together, promoting ourselves, applying to shows. The list goes on and on and on and on. Again, every burlesque performer is different. Their process is going to be different, but for the most part, we are responsible for ourselves, and a lot of performers at the same time will also work with another performer to workshop an act. So, can I get a private show? This is another red flag. No private shows. If you ask for a private show, 1, that's not part of the show. 2, just don't be creepy and ask for it after the show. If you're dating somebody new and you are told or you learn that they do burlesque, that line is not original. It is very common and it gets tiring after a while. I know burlesque performers, I know this troupe, you must be with them, hey? As soon as I tell people I do burlesque, a lot of the time people assume I'm in a troupe or part of a group or I have my own agent. I already mentioned how we are responsible for our own stuff, so I am my own agent, even though I wish I had one. But troupes. So the ironic thing is I am in a troupe, but most burlesque performers are not. Troupes are just one way to do burlesque, and they are a collective or a group of performers who do shows together, and it's going to be those same performers you see at those shows. Troupes often actually don't hold auditions. There's the Cheesecake Burlesque Review, the Atomic Bombshells, the Backdoor Johnnies, the Fat Bottom Cabaret. There are so many troupes across the globe that are phenomenal. Many of us who even are in troupes will do both. I myself am in a troupe and I'll do my solo act within that troupe. I'll also do group acts within that troupe, but I also perform by myself as Cherry Cheeks, completely unrelated to my troupe, the Vancouver Island Vixens, when I go to just a public show or a regular show that is not produced by my troupe. Wait, so our city has burlesque? How did I not know? Why, yes. This town and city does have burlesque. On one end of the scale, there's people who don't know burlesque exists in their town, and then on the other end, there's people who discover burlesque in their town, and then for some reason don't think it exists outside of their town. A lot of cities have thriving burlesque scenes. You kind of gotta be in the know for the most part to know about sensuality type things in your local town, because it is still stigmatized to a degree. Even though we've had this huge wave of performers since the 90s and again since Burlesque the movie came out, it's still this thing that so many people don't know. Even within that city, there are so many different pockets of burlesque and what it can look like, and I think it's just so cool. I love traveling for burlesque, and I really love seeing the different cracks and crevices and how it exists in all these different communities. And that's actually it this time. Those are all the questions that I had recorded for common questions I get as a burlesque performer. And if you are a performer of burlesque or even drag or any similar related performance styles, comment down below, is there anything that I missed? Are there any other common questions that you get that you have an answer for? Or also, if you haven't answered for any of the questions I mentioned that might be different from what I said, feel free to say your thoughts down below. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye.